You're listening to a Rev FM production podcast. Welcome to Pastors Live, the show that discusses things of the Bible and current events for people who love to laugh. And now, the hosts who answer questions with more questions. It's Pastors Dave, Ty, Shane, and the other guy.
You're still here?
Yes, right. You're still
tuning in?
You're still tuning in. Hey, everybody, it's Monday. It's April 22nd. And by the way, just so everybody knows, today is actually Passover. And so, but Dave, why was Easter before Passover? We don't understand. Why was that?
Calendars.
That's all. It's just calendars.
We use the Gregorian calendar, and our brothers and sisters in Israel, they have two calendars. That's how confused they are.
That's right.
They have a civil calendar and a liturgical calendar, and so don't get too freaked out about the Easter or resurrection celebration coming before Passover. It's just a calendar thing. But tonight,
yes,
and it's too late. There's no more registrations. We are full. I'm glad to say that we are absolutely full. But tonight we'll be having a Passover Seder in the Fellowship Hall. The Edgingtons and the Verhoevens are leading it, and it's awesome. We're going to be seeing Christ in the Passover, and every element of Passover points to Jesus, and so that's why John said, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world," and why the Apostle Paul said he is our Passover. So we get to look at all that tonight. I'm pretty stoked.
I am too. I've been practicing.
Are you guys sitting with us?
We're sitting with you guys. Yeah, I've been working on my Baruch Hashem Adonai. I've been working on all of my stuff. Yeah,
nice.
So, but we've got some great guys in the studio today.
Just be sure to bring a squeegee and a handkerchief, will you? There it is.
Hey, so we got Pastor Shane is here today.
Hello.
Pastor Dave's here today.
God bless you guys.
Pastor Steve's here today. Gary Austin's here today, the voice of the Valley. Thankful for all he does, engineering, producing, and making this thing happen over 1,000 times.
An all-around nice guy.
It's like, we're in season 10. Did you guys think we were going to get to, honestly, did you guys actually think we were going to get to 1,000 episodes?
We're already 7 episodes in. Well,
I know, right?
I am pleased that we have killed off a couple main characters, because if you don't do that, the show just kind of drags on. You know?
So,
wow. I had no idea James was dead. But I just thought he moved to Iowa.
That was,
I'm kidding.
Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
I mean, that's funny, Shane. That's super funny. By the way, I just want to let you guys know I've moved on from my emotional support pickle, Dilbert. I've now moved on to emotional support coffee. So I've just moved on.
Progress is progress.
So progress
Speaking
is
of
progress.
Coffee,
That's right.
We're so grateful for our good friends over at Greenhouse Coffee,
Yes,
2299 East 17th Street.
That's right. Got to drive through, go check them out. Let them know you heard about it on Pastors Live if you live in this area. So thankful for you. But today is April 22nd. It is Passover. It's also National IT Professionals Day. So
Thanks,
everybody
Chris.
who keeps everything working, thank you. So Chris, thank you so
Chris.
much. We appreciate you. I want to shout out to all our guys that are on. We move so many files around, so much audio and video footage and everything, and just every once in a while there's a hiccup, but so thankful for all the guys that work and do stuff with us. Today's readings, looking forward to getting into those as well.
Also happens to be Earth Day, by the way.
Oh, okay, that's right.
And remember that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So
and
you've got friends that are out there celebrating Earth Day, say, you know what, I celebrate it too, because I know the one who made it.
Well, and I think that also brings up an interesting conversation, which is the theology of ecology, like having an idea that we were designed by God to actually tend to his creation.
Yep.
And so I was kind of raised in church where it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's all going to burn anyway. And it doesn't matter if we litter. It doesn't matter if we do those things. And I'm like, hold on for a second. It actually matters, because when you go back to Genesis, we were designed by God to participate with him, using the elements of creation to create communities of generosity, of peace, shalom, right? Generosity, shalom, goodness, justice, righteousness. I mean, we're actually supposed to be doing what we're doing, building these communities where people are taken care of. And that's why we see a lot of the hospitality laws in the Old Testament, especially in Leviticus.
So. And God even addresses, God even addresses volunteers, right? When you let your garden go that 7th year, and then there's volunteers that come up. And so you're by volunteers, that's vegetables and things like that you didn't intentionally plant. They come up voluntarily. Wow, I'll just make up words as I go. Springendiver. I could run for, never mind. But God even addresses that in the scriptures, and I love that. And even, Ty, where God says, and by the way, when you're harvesting, leave the corners of your fields. Right. I mean, there's so, like you said, when we're talking about those things, God says we're going to build community, and even the poor in your communities are going to be well taken care of. God did not set up a welfare system for Israel. He set up a workfare system. And that is, hey, if you're poor, you don't have what the other guy has, but look over there. That field has been harvested and the corners of the field have been left for you, and you could go and harvest, go into the marketplace and do your trading. You kept your dignity, there was some integrity there. Yeah. And, it was a wonderful system, not the system of just throwing money at people in a way that they can't ever get out of that vortex. But God says, hey, leave the corners so that not only are they well taken care of, but they can also be part of commerce. What a great system, man.
I love what you said. Not only does it give the poor dignity, but it gives the well-off humility.
That's right.
As well.
I didn't say that you did, but I like it.
No, Shane, that's actually really, no, that's good.
You claim it, man.
Because it's mine.
But that's the idea. It's like when James talks about the rich and the poor, right?
Yes.
So the rich in their humility, and the poor in the richness of their integrity. It's like it's having that. And I think it's really, really important that we really do stop and consider what it is to be part of a community. And that's why we talk about, it's like being a church community and loving one another and taking care of one another and helping one another out, because this is what we're called to do. And I really appreciate that, because I think sometimes we forget that.
But Ty,
we're supposed to actually take care of the world.
But Ty, have you seen my barns? I'm going to build a bigger barn.
Yeah, and you know what? And then, like James says, your life's going to be required of you tomorrow. And what good is that? Jesus said basically the same thing, right?
You can't take it with you, man.
You can't take it with you, because our life is but a vapor. Right, we just can't take it with us.
Right,
Let me play devil's advocate. Go ahead.
Yeah,
it's appointed for man to die. We don't know when that appointment is.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Let me play devil's advocate for just a second, just for the sake of conversation.
Get behind me. Sorry,
there's no room over there. Sorry, your chair's right up against the wall. But people sometimes look at Watersprings. It's happened very recently. They look at us as a big barn and come and just say, "Hey, you're a church. Gimme." Now, not everybody. There are people who need benevolent help, and we're happy to do that where we can, when we can. But there are people who just sort of show up, palms up, saying, well, you're a big church. We need money. Give it up. Let's go. And, Ty, when you and I have both I've planted and you've pastored, we've both pastored smaller congregations, meaning simply less numbers of people, great congregations, big people, big hearts, but maybe only 50 people or 100, 200 people, whatever it might be. And, I can remember when I was planting a church in Oregon, and there was a guy in our area that would show up regularly. God bless Hans. I loved him. I prayed with him many times, but he would just show up and say, basically, give me some money. And I would say, well, buddy, listen, I've got some weeding out here that I could use some help with. And I'd give him something to do. And I remember people would say to me, well, that's not very nice. I mean, why not just give the poor guy $20? And I would share with him. I'd say, because I want him to have some dignity. Not have the attitude, I can just go to Pastor Dave with my palm up and Dave's going to give me a Fred Meyer card or a gift card to Walmart or something, But that Pastor Dave's going to say, well, I'll tell you what, your time is valuable, your time is worth something. And I'd go out there and pull weeds with him. We could talk, and and sometimes he wouldn't talk, and I would just share the gospel. And we'd work for an hour. And I'd give him a $20 gift card or whatever it might be. And it would say, no alcohol, no tobacco, and he could go to the grocery store and get some groceries. But that was the whole idea of having dignity there. But now, people come to Watersprings and well, look how big you guys are. Well, yeah, but guess what? Proportionally, it hasn't changed anything. When you have 33 acres or if you have a third of an acre, it doesn't matter. There's money going out to take care of the facilities, and you do have people in the body of Christ, and you have missions, and you have blah, 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 blah. So it's not just like, oh, you're a big church, so I'm going to come to you guys and say, well, I need $300 for my electric bill. And you look at them and go, well, I'm sorry, who are you again?
Yeah, who are you?
Oh, I'm just passing through. And I saw this big church. I've heard that you guys are big, so I need you to give me money. And I think, when did the world decide that the church is their own personal ATM?
I can actually start to answer that
as
question.
Pastors, and as Pastor Steve, our administrative pastor, it's like, no, God has called us to be stewards of, these are his finances. And of course we want to be generous people, but at the same time we're also told that we have to be good stewards.
Right. There's a dynamic that is specific to our culture here in North America. Helping Without Hurting is a great video documentary series that you guys can utilize if you're listening. You can just go to YouTube. It's free on YouTube.
Yeah, it's also a great book too.
Great book too. And the problem is our society is built on tangible physical things, right? So if you ask the world, if you go around the world and ask the question, what does it mean to be poor? Most of the world relates it to a spiritual and emotional community tie. You're ostracized, you're kicked out, you're poor. You've been
shunned. That's where you're
something
poor. You've
wrong
lost community.
With you. You're poor, you've lost community, right?
A leper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. And here in America, when you ask people in America who are poor, they always equate it to my property and the things that I have.
Material.
Right,
yeah.
Material. And that's because we are in a very consumer based society, and as we go along, people forget about our spirit, our emotion, and the need for human connection,
right?
And God connection, right? Of course, God connection in this conversation, and so they think that it's a free handout, and people want to abuse the system. And so it's actually very wise. You're actually helping an individual when you don't let them abuse the system, and you do create opportunity for dignity, ownership, and responsibility.
And that opens the door for the gospel, yeah?
Yeah. And you're fixing the root
100%.
of the issue, because there's something deeply broken in that individual, and it's not making fun of them or looking down on them. It's okay. There's something broken. There's a connection that's broken between God and them and humanity. And there's an opportunity to fix that through the gospel, and walking side by side with them, giving them opportunity to understand what real relationships look like.
Yep. It's sad to me when I see churches or parachurch organizations using the Maslow hierarchy of needs as if that is the model for ministry. It's just not. It absolutely is not the model of ministry. The model of ministry for us is the model that Christ lived for us. And as Pastor Ty has been talking about the last couple of weeks, even in the baptism teaching, Pastor Ty referred to the idea of being a disciple means I want to not only be close to Jesus, I want to become like Jesus. I want to follow Jesus. I want to follow in his steps. And following in Jesus' steps means sometimes you lay down the hard cheese, man. I mean, sometimes you got to talk to people and say, look, this is where the rubber meets the road. Yeah. This is how the cow eats corn, so to speak, as my dad would say, the old Texan that my dad was, hey, this is how the cow eats corn. And it's not because we're looking down on people. It's because we look at people and say, man, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You've been created in the image of God.
Well, and that's what we forget. We forget that we actually have a purpose that's a divine purpose.
Yes.
And especially in our Western culture, we've gotten very, very confused. I love what Paul wrote Paul, for those of you who don't know, Paul actually wrote 4 letters to the Corinthian churches. Mm-hmm. So the Corinthian church. And so we only have 2. And so there's a harsh letter that's missing, and there's an original letter that's missing. We also don't have the letters from them. So we have these 2, but he says this when he writes what we have as 2 Corinthians. He says this. He says, nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now, the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom or liberty. But we all, with unveiled faces, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, and I love this, are being transformed and metamorphosized, being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. The idea is, what Paul's declaring is discipleship. And Paul's saying, hey, I've given my life. It's no longer I who live, it's Christ who lives in me. And so I'm being conformed more and more like him. That's why he says, hey, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Yep. He says, I take into my own flesh the sufferings of Christ which are lacking. Not that Christ didn't fully suffer, but that I identify with his suffering. I think we miss out on a lot of things because we are not truly saying, I'm going to live a sacrificial life as a disciple because but I really want to live as a Christian. I want to know I'm going to heaven when I die, but I want all my stuff of the world too. Instead of just saying, I want to follow Christ with everything I've got because I want to be a disciple. Yeah. And again, it's like we talk around in our culture, like the word pastor and elder have been interchanged so long that they like the same word. Well, we use the word disciple and Christian as well. And because we've taken up that moniker of Christian, we've forgotten that the actual call is discipleship, to be a disciple, not necessarily just to have the name Christian, but to actually be a disciple, which should be visible to others.
Right. Well, Jesus didn't say, all authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. Now I'm giving you the authority to go into all the world and make Christians or to make converts. He never said that. He says, I'm giving you the authority, the power, the Holy Ghost infusion that's going to come in Acts 1:8. I'm giving you that so that you can go into all the world and make disciples. And we've forgotten that. And over the years, and I'm not trying to chide anybody. I'm really not. But it's lazy of us in the church to make terms interchangeable. And what happens is, as time goes by, right, the church in mass begins to just accept that those terms are interchangeable. And so that when a pastor or a pastor teacher, kind of throws the flag and says, hey, wait a minute, everybody, let's talk about this. And people kind of cringe, like, hey, wait a minute, don't mess with my vocab, dude. And it's like, well, it just, we want to be wise. We want to understand who we are, guys. We're disciples. Yeah, we can use I'm sorry, Steve. We can use the moniker Christian. There's nothing wrong with that.
Did you kick him?
I did. I just kicked Steve.
Well, seriously, I thought he was sleeping over there.
No,
anyway, so it's like,
no. I could see his eyes. They were rolled up in the back of his head like a great white shark. He's thinking. You're thinking, aren't you?
Thinking. That's how I think.
He's thinking about those cookies from last week.
Thinking about the cookies from last week. Yes.
Right. Thinking about my birthday dinner.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Yes. By the way, happy birthday.
You, buddy. Happy birthday.
But
the point
29
is,
and holding.
It's not that we don't want to stand in the pulpit and say, oh, look, we've come up with something new. It's not about coming up with something new. Sometimes it's about coming up with something old, coming up with something that's forgotten. Like, hey, guys, we're called to make disciples. We're not just called to make yes, we want converts. Yes, we want people to give their lives to Christ. Absolutely. What are you supposed to do with them? You're supposed to make disciples.
Right. Well, and then I love that because we've kind of strayed away from this idea that Jesus is Lord too.
100%.
Jesus is my Savior and he saves me from my sin. Yeah, that's true.
Sure.
For you to submit to his lordship over your life because he's such a good master. He's a good God. He's a good Lord, but he is Lord, right? Yeah. That's why his name, when he says in John 16 and 17, Jesus says he shares the glory with the Father. If you go to Isaiah, God says, I don't share my name and my glory with anyone. So for Jesus to even say my name is the most high name.
Why do you think they wanted to kill him?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Jesus is Lord, and we need to submit to his lordship and, be obedient to what he says. And I'm sorry, he doesn't say, hey, this is just good for you and hide this in your heart and make you feel good. So
let me, we can close with this idea then. Pick up your trash. Because that's where the whole conversation started, right? Yeah, today. So it's like, it's all right. Yeah, pick up your trash.
Go make disciples.
Go make disciples. Yeah, it's like, but yes.
Well, check it out. So when Paul's writing to Timothy in 1 Timothy 4:12, and he says, "Be thou an example to the believer in all these things." One of the things he says, we have it in our English Bible, it says in purity. Go back and check that word out. It says in hygiene. In hygiene. Be an example. And we have to be careful about, are we clean people? Do we pick up the trash? Remember this in Revelation, Jesus says, "I am coming to the earth to judge those who do what? Destroy the earth." And that's what you were talking about, Pastor Ty, to begin the program, right? The theology of ecology. We can't just say, oh, well, hey, go out and change the oil and just let your old oil run into the soil, and that kind of thing. No. Listen, God takes it very seriously. He takes stewardship, and this is the whole thing, talking about theology of ecology, is also about stewardship. God has called us to be good stewards of the things He has entrusted to us.
Absolutely.
So we can be entrusted with more in the age to come.
Including His flock.
Including His flock, 100%. Yeah. Hey, guys, listen, we're out of time for today. It's a Monday. We hope you have a fantastic Monday. You're loved, your family. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
That was weird. There was like a blank there.
I know.
Did you guys hear that?
You know what? I had a glitch.
You've reached the end of another episode of Pastors Live, a Rev FM production podcast. Thank you for listening. Submit your questions and comments by email to pastorslive@therev.fm. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review from your favorite podcast listening platform. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon so you don't miss the next episode drop.